I just want to find 11,780 votes.
The Fulton County Grand Jury investigation of Donald Trump.
What proves fact A, fact B, and fact C? If we can do that, I'm going to bring an indictment.
I'm Bill Rankin.
I'm Tamar Hallerman. Join us for Season 9 of Breakdown from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Listen now, and please follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, it's the Friday News Roundup. I'm with CityCast Mallory Falk and Elizabeth Kama talking about schools, housing, and historical markers. It's Friday, December 16th. I'm Morgan Moody, and this is CityCast Pittsburgh. Okay, you've got us for 2 days in a row. Once again, I'm joined by the lead producer, Mallory Falk.
Hello.
And producer, Elizabeth Kama.
Hello.
Back again. Winter break is coming up, but there's a little bit of public school news before then. Mallory, you've been paying attention to the new Pittsburgh Public Schools budget, right?
Yeah, Pittsburgh Public Schools is planning to pass their 2023 budget at a meeting next week. It's one that'll keep the district afloat, presumably without having to raise taxes. Initially, the district thought it would deplete its fund balance by the end of next year, but it seems like that won't be the case now. And that's largely because of federal pandemic relief funds. The district got tens of millions of dollars in COVID relief that it can use to stay afloat. And there was also a tax increase this year that's helping.
Okay, so what are the numbers here? Like, how big is the budget and how does it compare to last year?
It's a $675.9 million budget. That's like a slight increase from last year's budget, about 1.5%. And the district says that increase is due to things it can't really control, like retirement costs have gone up, charter school costs have gone up, so it needed to build in that increase.
But you said that federal relief funds are helping us get through this next year. That won't last forever, right? It's not like a long-term source of revenue. I know the district has a deficit, so other than like raising taxes, what can the district do to raise more money so that when the pandemic funds like dry up and they don't have that anymore, they're not in big trouble?
Yeah, it's a really good point. This pandemic money is not going to last forever. It's kind of this one-time infusion. One thing the district's been talking about is this new program called Bus Patrol. We mentioned it very briefly on the show a little while back. Basically, there are cameras installed on the district's school buses now. So if a driver illegally passes a bus that's stopped, has its stop sign out, they'll get recorded and fined, and then some of the revenue from those fines is going to go back into the district. It's not really clear how effective that is yet. This program kind of just started.
Yeah.
But the district's predicting they might make about $1 million from it. The current deficit is $9 million, so that's not going to wipe it out. But this is, one thing the district's pinning its hopes on and has raised as a source of revenue that, would continue beyond just the next year. In the past, PPS has also sold unused buildings to make money, but again, not really like a long-term sustainable solution because there's only so many buildings.
They sold Shenley. Just still bitter about it. That's all. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
It was a great school.
It really was.
When the district is like low on money, I feel like there's often talks about closing schools and like consolidating buildings. Is that also, going to be happening this year?
So if those talks are happening, they haven't been happening publicly. So we'll see, but it's not, I know last year there was like a lot of public discussion about this. That doesn't seem to be the case right now.
But there was a public meeting on the proposal of the budget like earlier this month. What did people have to say then?
Yeah, a few community members spoke up at that meeting. They said they'd like to see more funding for students with disabilities, more investment in social emotional learning. Someone questioned increased spending on security services in this proposed budget and said they'd rather see that money invested in school climate. So those were a few of the public comments at that public meeting.
When are they voting?
The school board is set to vote on the budget at a meeting next Wednesday, December 21st. And I want to shout out Pittsburgh City Paper, Public Source, and WESA for their reporting on the budget. We'll be sure to link their coverage in the show notes.
Yeah, well, speaking of really great coverage, WPXI has been doing some really great coverage of the fire at the Roosevelt building in downtown. Morgan, I know you live near there. Did you see the fire on Sunday?
You know what? I didn't. I heard the thing about living down here is like, you hear sirens all day. And it's like they could be going across the bridge to the hospital. They could be going, over to the north. They could be going anywhere. I did have some friends text me about the fire, but yeah, that's just a couple blocks away from me.
Wow.
Elizabeth, for those of us who haven't heard much about this fire, can you just break down what exactly happened?
Yeah, so the Roosevelt building is downtown. It's an apartment building. It also provides subsidized housing, and a fire was reported there on Sunday at like 10:30 p.m., and firefighters were able to control it by 12:15. It was believed to have begun on the 12th floor, and it was like largely contained to that floor, although a resident said she noticed smoke on the 11th and 14th floor. She said this to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And the building owner told WPXI that he thought it was related to a cooking incident, but there's been no word on what actually caused it.
Did anyone get hurt?
Yeah, unfortunately, Barbara Johnson, an 80-year-old resident, died while trying to evacuate. Johnson's granddaughter told WPXI that she lived on the 14th floor, and her family told them that she was making her way down from the 14th floor down to the 5th floor, but she collapsed in the stairwell and was declared dead on site. There was another resident who was in critical condition, a firefighter who had minor injuries, and a medic who was treated for smoke inhalation. But many of the people who are living there are displaced. That's like one of the ongoing tragedies of the situation, is that those folks don't have a place to live right now.
Where are these people staying at now?
And also, how many people are we talking about? Like, how many people were displaced by this fire?
Yeah, so right after the fire, people stayed at the convention center. The Red Cross set up a shelter there. While some of the numbers have varied, it's about 75 people and some pets were staying there until Tuesday night when the Red Cross announced that they were closing that shelter. The folks were taken to quote-unquote off-site lodging accommodations, and there hasn't really been any information about what that means exactly. A lot of the people, as I mentioned, it was subsidized housing. A lot of people need to be in the city to go to work, to access resources, their job, their community. So some people are paying for hotel rooms, which really adds up. Some people are going to the suburbs and spending time with family and living with family, but they have to get downtown to get to work. So it's really causing a lot of issues in that sense.
Is this the first time that something like this has happened at this building, or was there anything saying that it was a danger to anyone in the past?
Yeah, one resident told the Post-Gazette that the building's fire alarms were finicky and had gone off for really small things in the past, like smoke from cooking. And so that resident actually said that they were staying in their apartment thinking that the alarm was just going to go off, that it was a small thing. And firefighters knocked on his door and were like, actually, it is a real fire. You need to get out. And that's only one story. So we don't know how much that played into how long it took for people to get out. There was also a fire there in January of 2022, so this year, that caused folks to evacuate. And some people, but not nearly as many as this time, lost their apartments then. That was caused by a cigarette. Actually, the victim of the fire, Barbara Johnson, her family told WPXI that she was hurt in that fire in January and that she asked to be moved from the 14th floor to a lower floor so she could more easily get out of the building in case of an emergency. And she wasn't moved. And again, she did die on the staircase on the 5th floor trying to get out.
That's just so tragic that, this maybe could have been preventable and that this was something that was already on the family's radar.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to hear. The building previously has faced violations from the city's Department of Permits, Licensing, and Inspections, including a failure to maintain proper records, relating to fire escapes inspections in 2016 and 2018. There haven't been any since. So the causes of the fire and what made it worse or, led to people getting hurt and losing their houses, is still under investigation. So we'll keep following it and keep you guys updated.
Maybe you're already starting to think about how you want next year to be different. You know, those resolutions and goals for the new year. If you're looking to buy your first home, you know, now's the perfect time to listen to the How to Buy a Home podcast. Host David Sidoni is an industry expert, and his podcast has helped so many listeners close on their first homes. David can guide you through next steps that are right for you, whether you're planning to buy a home now or 5 years from now. Plus, he just released a first-time home buyer starter kit at howtobuyahome.com. Start planning this holiday season at howtobuyahome.com and make this the last year that you rent. Find How to Buy a Home on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, so that was a little heavy. So to move on to something like a little bit lighter, the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission just approved 36 new markers, and Allegheny County is getting 4 of those. Is there anything in Pittsburgh or someone from Pittsburgh that you would nominate to get one of these markers?
So if you listened to our episode on Monday, we busted the myth about the first drive-in gas station in the world. There's a state historical marker on the site on Baum Boulevard in East Liberty, which is now a parking lot, but where there was a golf station that was credited as being the first in the world. But we learned in that episode that that's not the case. It wasn't the first in the world, and it wasn't actually even the first in Pittsburgh. So maybe this would be a historical marker revision, and a new marker could get placed on the site of the first documented station in Pittsburgh so that we can, set the record straight.
Yeah, maybe they could put like an asterisk beside.
Issue a
beside what they have.
correction.
Yeah. But that's exactly like those little markers, those little blue markers, they're conversation starters, they're guideposts, little history lessons, memorials, attractions even. So like I said, Allegheny County is getting 4. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bob Babbitt.
Not a clue.
Okay. Musician. So Bob Babbitt is a Hall of Fame inductee. He's best known for his bass guitar work with Motown artists, the Funk Brothers. Also a part of a group of studio musicians that were based out of Philadelphia.
So our sister city.
Yes, across the way. He left us for Philadelphia, but I get it because the music scene out there is superb as well. Babbitt was born Robert Craner here in Pittsburgh. He grew up in Mount Washington and Belsuver. He went to South Hills High School, which is no longer. I think my dad went to South Hills High School.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of school closures.
Right. Speaking of Pittsburgh Public School closures. It's probably apartments now, too. Anyways, his music's featured on Smokey Robinson, The Miracles, Tears of a Clown, War, The Temptations, Ball of Confusion. There's so many. Marvin Gaye.
Wow.
Stevie Wonder. Yeah, he's a really well-known musician, and that's
those
great.
Are names that I know.
Yeah, that's great that he's finally getting his I would say flowers, but it's a plaque. So.
And even though he left us for Philly, it's cool that this marker is being placed here in Pittsburgh.
And understandably, back in those days, now Pittsburgh has a very robust music scene, but a lot of people have had to take their talents to other cities in order to get the shine and recognition that they deserve. One person who stayed here but didn't get the shine and recognition he deserved until after he died, Charles Teeny Harris. Well, everybody else, knows him as Teeny Harris, the photojournalist from here, chronicled Pittsburgh's Black community, the jazz and cultural scene here.
He was a fantastic photographer. If you haven't seen his work, I really recommend looking at it. I mean, looking it up.
Yeah, and you don't even have to look it up. You could go to the Carnegie Museum of Art and go check it out for yourself. It's. I feel like it's just even better in person than it is, in
a Google search.
Right.
And Megan, you mentioned this briefly in newscast the other day, but you said he also documented some members of your family.
Yeah. So my Nana is actually on the cover of one of his books that's at the museum that features some of his work. Her name is Doris Moody, and she's sitting on the car that's overlooking the city. There's also some pictures of like my great grandfather in some. I found like my aunt and uncle when they were like kids in some pictures. And that was through the archives, not through anything that's been like printed or published. But it's amazing most of my family is from the Hill, and it's just really cool to kind of see them being part of these,
Pittsburgh history.
Anyways, so yes, Teenie Harris is getting his plaque. The Pirates will also be getting one for having the first all-black / Latino lineup in Major League Baseball history. This happened, this happened in the 70s. Here's another Philadelphia connection. On September 1st, 1971, the Pirates were playing the Philadelphia Phillies, and they won.
Boo.
Right. Well, hey, look,
they do have a great mascot. I'll give them that.
I don't think they had that
Fanatic?
mascot though in the 70s. Did they?
I don't know the official history of the Philly Fanatic.
Right. Let me not get the Philly Fanatic in our mentions this week. Apologies to the Philly Fanatic and the gritty supporting community. But yeah, so the Pirates beat the Phillies 10-7 at Three River Stadium. So many things that are no longer existing that we're talking about in this podcast today.
A Pirates win.
A pirate.
Oh, you went there.
That was great. A Pirates win. Yes. Great schools. Danny Murdoch started 9 African-American and Latino players. There were only like 11,000 fans at that game, which actually is pretty on track for today. But history was still made that day. It was 24 years after Jackie Robinson had officially broken baseball's color barrier. And the Pirates, became the first major league franchise to field an all-black and Latino starting 9.
Did they know that they were like making history in that game?
No, they didn't. It wasn't until like the 3rd or 4th inning that Dave Cash is looking around and was like, you know what? We have all brothers out there. So it's kind of funny. You don't really realize those sorts of things are happening because the Pirates, already had a very diverse team in the first place. So it wasn't really intentional that these guys ended up in the lineup. It was really like a couple of injuries that allowed Dave Cash and Jackie Hernandez to fill in. But that starting lineup, I should mention, too, that I have I am collecting all of these bobbleheads. So if you ever, I'll let you know which ones I don't have. And if you see them, please send them to me. I would appreciate it. The lineup was Rennie Stennett, second base. I have that bobblehead. Gene Clines, Roberto Clemente. I have Roberto Clemente. Willie Stargell, Manny Sanguillen, Dave Cash, Al Oliver, Jackie Hernandez, and Doc Ellis was the pitcher. And if you've never watched a documentary about Doc Ellis and the no-hitter he pitched while high on LSD and a mix of a bunch of other drugs, you should check it out.
That is
Weekend plans for me.
A great film.
It is a great film. If you don't know the statistical improbability to already pitch a no-hitter, to do so while high on LSD is
crazy.
Insane. Yeah.
I feel like the Immaculate Reception is sort of the miraculous sports moment that Pittsburgh is known for. But to me, I don't know. This
is more impressive.
Yeah. How do you even see home plate? What are you pitching to? Anyways, a great movie. Another person from here who is going to be graced with a plaque is Dick Thornburgh. He was the 41st governor of Pennsylvania, 76th Attorney General of the United States. As governor, he oversaw the emergency response efforts during the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have ceremonies for the installations of these plaques and markers. Not for all of them, but there's a whole process that I looked up that involves them pouring this liquid aluminum into sand molds. That's how they do this, which might be a cool episode. Maybe one day we can go watch how a historical marker is made, if anyone's interested in that. But if those aren't your weekend plans.
If you don't want to watch liquid aluminum become a historical marker, you mean?
your loss. But it's going to be cold this weekend, so it might be a good time to, do some of the indoor activities that we put on our winter activities list from yesterday's episode. It's a good time to maybe hit up like some art galleries or museums around the city. Boom Concepts has a show, Black on Black Love Exhibition. It's at the 820 Gallery on Liberty Avenue. It's a really great show. It's 9 artists from Pittsburgh: Norman Brown, Saucony Burton, Dominic McDuffie, Kinzelin, Cameron Camo Nesbitt. He has the mural, actually, that's down by the river of Billy Porter. Yeah, he did that. He does a lot of graffiti art. Really cool artist. Atia Jones, Stacy Pearl, Janetta Seal, Marcy Nixon Washington. Yeah, I just wanted to name them all.
Just cool folks.
You should get there and check it out. It's a really cool exhibit. That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Our team this week includes Elizabeth Kama, Mallory Falk, Francesca DeBecco, Noah Snyderman, Meg Dalton, and me, Morgan Moody. Music is by Benji, and we'll be back on Monday with more news from around the city. So have a great weekend.
Sorry, I noticed my chair was creaking, so I just switched chairs because I'm now hyper vigilant of all the background noise.